Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Michele Jutrisa and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stamping Up here in New South Wales, Australia. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today we're going to be basically making a mess. Let's see what we can come up with. Last week we started playing with watercolour and having a look at my favourite technique with using watercolour, and today we're going to play with probably one of my least favourite techniques. I'm not going to say I'm really good at doing this, but I like to play around with it and give it a go. And as I said last week, the best way to learn something is by practicing. So what I've got is some watercolour paper, and we're going to do some colouring and see what we come up with. I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you watercolouring one sheet today. I have already pre-done some, so then we can create a card at the end, because you do need to let it dry, and sometimes it can take a little while for it to dry. Now, please jump on, say hello, let us know where you're from. Hello, Leslie. Thanks for joining. And Lena, thank you, from Canada. Thank you very much for jumping on. So what I've got is I've picked out some bottles. I've been playing with this for the last couple of hours. So, as I said, I've already done some watercolouring. But I have got here Fresh Freesia, Old Olive, Lemon Lolly, Daffodil Delight, very old bottle of Daffodil Delight, and some Bubblegum Bath. And I have got myself a little painting tray, and I better turn this down so you can actually see what I'm looking at. So as you can see, I've already had some colours in here. And basically what we're going to do is just like a water wash, and then play with it a little bit. Now, as I said, this is something I'm not overly great at, but I like to play with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with, it shows up really well when you're working with your darker colours. So I'm going to play with some Old Olive. So I'm just putting about 3 or 4 drops in there. And I'm going to add some water to that just to water it down. Now, I do suggest you using watercolour paper for this. Stamping Up have got their Fluid 100. Because we're playing, as I said last week, sometimes I buy a cheaper pad of watercolour paper just to play around with. So that's what I've got today. It's around about a similar sort of weight paper, similar sort of texture. So I try to pick something that is close as possible, particularly when I'm playing. But let's have a look. So we're just going to do a water wash. So I've just got a thick paintbrush here. I don't know, what is it? It's a number 12. It's just a brush I've picked up somewhere along the line in my travels. And all I'm going to do is just load up my brush here. Now, I've also got some paper towel. Now, you could spray this with water first, which would help the water to move around. But I'm actually working, again, on a dry piece of cardstock. And I want to die cut these. So all I'm just going to do is I'm just going to give some texture to that, or some colour to that paper, by just colouring that all over with my ink. Now, you can just set that aside, let it dry like it is. It has got some areas which are slightly darker, some areas which are slightly lighter. But if you want a bit more texture on this, there's quite a few different ways we can do this. I'm going to grab another brush I've got here and some water. So this is a fan brush, and I'm just going to grab that, and I'm going to sprinkle that on there. And as you can see already, that is already starting to get some texture in it. Okay, so what the water is doing, the splatters that I've thrown on there, is pushing that water away. Now, I could have waited for that to dry a little bit, but it does work better if everything is a little bit wet. So you can pop that to one side and let that dry. Another thing that you can do, this is one I've already done. So I've done a similar sort of thing. I've just put a wash of the Old Olive on there, and then I've put some salt on this. So I'm just going to move this out of the road a little bit so I can just take that back. get rid of some of that mess that's there. And I've put some salt on there. Now, I usually normally use just ordinary rock salt, but I couldn't find any ordinary rock salt, and I knew I had pink salt, so I'm just using some pink rock salt. And we're going to see how this is gone. So I've put that on there while it was wet, and I've just let that dry. And what happens is the salt absorbs any moisture, and it absorbs the colour. And what you can be left with, once I've taken all that off, is something like that. Okay, so that's another type of texture that you can get on there. I'm just going to pop a little bit more splatters on here because I just want a few more. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. And what you can also do is, if you've got too much water like I've got up here in that blob there, I can actually pat that away, and that will actually take away that water, but also take away the colour as well. So a great way, because I want to cut this up in leaves, a great way to get some texture for your leaves. Now you can hit that with your heat gun, and that will dry that out relatively quickly, or you can just let that dry naturally. Okay, so I'm just going to set this to one side and see how we go. I have got another one here that I've already done. This one here is already dry. And this is another one that I've done, again, by adding the splatters to it. And I've got areas where I've got a little bit darker and a little bit lighter. So I've already got two green ones that we can cut up fairly quickly, because you do want that to dry before you start die cutting those. Okay, so let me just clear off my paintbrush. And it's just a matter of playing. Like I said last week, when you're playing with watercolour, grab some old or some cheaper watercolour paper and just play. Just remember that every, I believe, I'm not going to say I'm 100% correct here, but every thickness of watercolour paper or type of watercolour paper could give you a different effect, okay? And you're never going to create the same thing twice. So it's just a matter of playing. So let's just play again with another sheet of watercolour paper. I'm going to use this side here. It's got a little bit of, must have had a bit of green on there, but that's okay. I'm just going to use that. And I'm going to use my fresh freesia, and I'm going to pop some drops into there. And add a little bit of water to this. Hello, Lenny. How you going? We're having a messy day today. We're playing with ink and water. My hands are already getting quite yellow and inky. So, as I said before, you can water or spray your watercolour paper to start off with. And that'll just help whatever ink you put on there move around. And this time we're going to go all over. What I don't recommend you to do is put ink directly onto your paper, unless you specifically like that idea. This one here, which is the colour Bubble Bath, I actually dropped a couple of drops of watercolour on there just to see what happens, and that's what happens. It actually absorbs a lot quicker and heavier in those areas. So if you want more of an all over, I'm not going to throw that away because I can use that to cut up. But I'm just be very aware. You have to work very quickly sometimes if you want to have different textures. So again, I've just gone over that. I'm going to add a couple of more drops of this into my palette here. I'm not going to add any more water to this because what I want to do is I'm going to tip this up, and I just want to get, or maybe I do have to add a little bit more water. I want that to move a bit, but I want the colour to stay reasonably strong. But I want to get some, movement in this. Now you can hit this with the heat gun, and let me grab mine. As I'm holding it down and drying that off, that'll push that water down. Now what I was doing earlier was I was grabbing my water bottle, popping that onto there, and as I was drying, adding some more water, adding some more drips. I want that look of those drips going down my paper just to get a bit of a different effect. Now I wouldn't do this on your basic white because your basic white does not work the same as your watercolour paper. Your basic white will tend to peel. And if you're using a lot of water like I am here, I'm sorry you can't really see that at the moment because my hand was in the road. I'm just going to move that out of the road. So we're just going to get some texture. You can turn it back on itself, turn it in different directions, and get some texture on there. So I'm not going to keep going with that. I'll show you this one that I've done. So this one here, I did half the sheet in the fresh freezer and half the sheet in bubble bath, and just held it up and just dripped my brush down with colour and just blended it there. And that just gives me, so you don't have to do one colour just on one sheet. You can do a couple of different ones. Just beware, they will blend, but that just gives that really nice different effect on that one. So I'm just going to sit this one here to one side and let it dry with the other one. Just be very careful if you're sitting them on top of each other. You don't want the ink to flow one to the other. Now, I'm going to pop this all away here now because I have got a few here that I can show you, but it's just, I mean, it's plain. It really is plain. Have a couple of hours. You can sit down with your refill inks and just really just play and see, like I said last week, see what textures you come up with. Just going to pop the lid on my water bottle there. Pop those away and pop that away over there. And let me bring in the others so I can show you what I have created this morning. So as I said, I've created the green one there with some droplets. This green one was created with some salt. This one here running the drips down. This one here is just pretty much just going it all over. As I said, these heavier spots here is where I pop the ink directly to the paper. Don't really like that much. This one here, playing with the heat gun again, drying areas. It seems like when you use your heat gun to dry, you get those lines around, which, you know, can be quite effective. Because once you start cutting these out into different things, I'm not using these as backgrounds. I'm going to cut these out to be flowers and leaves and things like that. So here's another one I was playing around with. As I said, you'll get a different effect every time. This one here was Daffodil Delight. I did the wash in the colour, and then I went and I actually splattered some more Daffodil Delight on that. And I thought that looked actually quite good. The ones that have more blended out, they were still while the paper was wet. But these ones here, which are brighter in colour and darker, I'd splattered that when the paper was pretty much dry. And this was one that I did with the lemon lolly, and unfortunately I didn't remove it before I started splattering it with splattering this one with the Daffodil Delight. So my splatters went over everywhere, and I did have a little bit of salt on that one. And then this one here is again the Daffodil Delight with the salt. So let's just bring that in and see how that turned out. Now, the coarser your salt or the finer your salt, the finer your texture you're going to get. So if you really want a nice fine texture, then use a finer salt. but I do like the coarse. And there's that one there with the, hope you can see that. And that was done with the salt. Okay, so play. That's all I can say to do is get your refills out, get some paint brushes. You can use the water painters, and the water painters are back available again, which is really good. So Stamping Up have got those. And play, let these dry before you start die cutting. So these ones here I've been playing for the last 2 hours, so they are quite dry. This is the one I did when you first came on today. This is still wet. If I try to die cut it in the wet areas, it may not cut through nicely. So that's why I'm going to leave that to one spot. But don't ever throw anything away. If you do something, you don't like it, don't throw it away, because what we're going to do is we're going to cut that up. We're going to create a card cutting it up. Now, let me just remove all of this. This is just a Teflon mat that I've picked up at a craft store, and I just have this handy when I'm doing watercolouring because it just protects all my surfaces. Okay, so let's have a look what we're going to... Sorry, I'm just popping something on top of my wet ink and I don't want it to spill. Okay, so the stamp set I thought we'd play with is Impressions Abloom, and we're going to create a card with this. I'm going to do I wanted to keep the colours fairly soft. That's why I've chosen those colours, because remember the denser... Hi, Deborah, how are you? Some of these inks can give us, because we're not diluting them that much, we're using them fairly full strength. So you're going to get some really, really bright colours in this. You're going to get some really strong type of colours. So I've gone for most of the subtles, yes, particularly in the pinks and so forth, and the lemon lolly, because I wanted to keep this a little bit more subtle. Okay, sometimes I can go really, really bright and I go a little bit overboard, but to keep it toned down a little bit, I've gone from basic white as my base, and I've got a bit of ink on that. That's what happens when you're playing with ink. You get ink on things, but that's okay. So I've got a basic white card base. I've got a matte, which I think I'm going to run through an embossing folder. We'll do that in a second. And then I've got a piece to go on the inside. So, and I've cut that down quite a bit more. So anyway, we'll go through measurements and everything on my blog. But what we're going to do is I'm actually going to run this piece here through an embossing folder. And I love the corrugated embossing folder, so I thought that's what we're going to use next. I want to keep my texture mainly to the corrugation and to my flowers. And we're going to grab our plates. Whoops. Pop that in there. So I hope everyone's having a nice, or has had a nice week. Sort of just been sitting in my craft room today, just sort of, as I said, just playing with watercolours and that. My husband's gone out for the day. Met up with one of our sons at Sydney Motorsports track. They've gone looking at cars. So just been sitting in here on my own, so playing. Been a good day for it. And it looks like it's nice weather, which is good because next week we're supposed to have more rain. So let's run this through. And we're going to leave this here because we're going to do some die cutting. So there's our corrugated piece. Tried to get that fairly straight, but still didn't quite get it as straight as what I wanted, but that's okay. Lovely texture on that. So we'll pop that to one side. Grab our other plates we need for our die cutting. And let's have a look. So, Impressions Abloom dies. Let me just show you these. So I'm not going to use so much the stamps today. I just want these floral die images. And these dies will give me added texture as well, because it also adds texture to the center, or not to, well, yes, to the center, to our petals. So these dies come with just an outline die, so you can die cut that around the stamp image. But it also comes with this piece here, which fits inside that, and that will give us, we'll cut little nicks into the cardstock, so it gives us that little bit of added texture. So I'm just pulling out all of these pieces here, and we want to cut some leaves. Put this piece there. Got a little round piece right there. Let me just bring this down so you can see. This one goes in the center of our flower centers. So again, we've got an outline, and then we've got the piece in the middle to give us that added texture. Got some little flowers. Those as well. This one goes with that one. That one goes with that one. Got another one of those. So we've got a few leaves and that here as well. And we have got, there's some really small pieces of dies in this, because again, you've got two sizes in this circle. So you've got two circles, and then you've got these teeny weeny little bits that fit in the middle. So you've got to be very, very careful we don't lose those. I've left a few there. So let's start by popping some of these to one side, and we're going to die cut some and see how our coloured pieces of watercolour paper look after we've done a little bit of die cutting. Might get some more leaves out as well. So let's start with our green piece of watercolour paper. Now I'm going to, I do love that one with all that texture and splatter in there. So we're going to pop that one on there, and in here I have got some more. So we've got this one here, and we have got that. Okay, so this one here will cut out the die as like that. Same with that one. And then this one here is an outline, and you have got these little outline pieces that go in as well. So let's just, as I said, these are really, can be a little bit fiddly, a little bit small. That one there needs to be flipped. Now usually what I do, if I'm die cutting a lot of these, I will actually put washi tape or something over the top of these ones here. And then when I pick them up, they stay there. But I'm not going to worry about that today. Run that through. Yeah. Glad that magnetic tool is coming in handy. They are very, very hard if you lose them. At least, Lenny, I think I've got carpet on my floor and I would have devil of a time trying to find it. Okay, let's have a look what we've got. So, move some of these pieces out of the road. I need my take a pick tool to pop these out. So look at that. It's just got that little bit of interest in it. We've got picked up a couple of different colours in it. It's also got those little lines in there as well. So let's keep popping these out and having a look what we've ended up with. Here's another one. Oh, that's pretty. Let me put that onto a white piece of cardstock and then you can actually see them. Look at that. The texture on that paper. Okay. We've got another one there. Another one, and then we have this big one here. Just got to be very gentle when you're taking these ones out of dies because those little slits that they've put in them are very easy to rip if you're not careful. But that is just gorgeous. Okay, I'm just going to cut a couple of more. And I don't throw away any of this until I know that I've got everything out of it that I want. And I'm basically going to just use those, and I'm going to take these little ones here away for the moment. And I just pop all of it. Oops, I've just lost something. I've just lost a die. I could hear it, felt it on my finger, and then heard it on the floor. I'm going to have to pull out my magnetic piece in a minute, Lenny. The magnetic tool that Lenny and I are talking about are these, and they are a telescopic. You've got a light on the end. I don't worry about the light so much, but there is a light there on the end. I think this one's, the batteries are flat, but you can pull it out and it's got a magnet on the end there. Really great for picking things up off the floor. So looks like I'm going to have to go fishing in a little while. Okay, another couple leaves here. Whoops. As I said before, very careful pulling these out because they can separate. Pop that one over there. So I was going to say before, I have a plastic envelope and I pop all the leftover pieces of my watercolour paper into that. And then that way, if I ever need to come back, because I mean, there's still lots to use on there. You've got all these areas here, and I will come back and use those on another project. Okay, again, another lovely leaf. Where do I buy them from? Those ones I got off eBay, but you can buy them in, because it's a tool that mechanics use if they've got a sort of, they drop a nut or bolt or something in the the engine bay. So you can pick them up from any of your, like Bunnings should have them, I think. Yeah, it's, I'm trying to think, any of your car places should have them. I don't even know what they're called, but they're just a telescopic magnetic tool. But I got these ones for Linny and I off eBay. Okay, so let's grab one of these pink ones, and I like that one. And I also want some of the, maybe not that one so much, maybe this one here. Maybe I might just use that. And we'll do some big flowers there. We'll do biggest thing with these is trying to so if you go to any mechanical shop, parts shop, Bunnings, they should have them. Let's pop this one here. Don't think I've got that one quite the right way around. There we go. I do that one. Just there. This one here, I'm going to pop over here. And that one. And might do some of these little flowers as well. See how these ones looked, because these are the ones I did with the dripping. So there's my flower there. It's got a nice lot of texture on that. Got that one there. I'll take those little ones out later. They're just the tiny weeny little flowers. A couple there. Now what I do want to do is do one of these. Maybe this big one. Get that. Yeah, Super Cheap would have them. Well, they should do. But anywhere like that. Put that one there with just that darker colour on the edge. Okay. Now, the only other thing that I do want to do is just remove these ones here. Is I've got these little ones here, and I was going to do some flowers in that one there as well. Might do some more flowers, yep. But I want these as my flower centres. So oops, just that's that little one that be so easy to lose. There, I tell you what I will do. I'm going to grab because I've got to cut out a few centres. So this is what I was saying with the post-it note. What I tend to do with it is just pop that over the top of each one of those, give that a really good press, and then each time it'll lift up like that. And hopefully that will save me from losing any more little pieces. Just going to pop those down onto there. And we'll run that through. Don't need to go all the way through because we're only just cutting out those little bits there, but we're going to need to cut a few of these. So hopefully, just have to be very careful peeling this off. Pop that out, and I'm going to stick that back down. That just keeps those two pieces together a bit longer for me. So we do want to cut a few of these. Oops, that didn't cut all the way through. That one. Didn't wind it far enough. Try that one again. Just wind it a little bit further. Hi, Roseanne. How are you? Thank you for jumping on. This is really stuck down now. I'll go that way. There we go. Another big one. Pop that one there. Because the watercolour paper is a little bit thicker, it's popping out of the dies really well. think I might have enough of the little one. I'm just going to pop it to one side, but I'm going to do a couple more big ones. Always come back and cut a few more if I need them. But if I've got a few here done, it'll be good. And it doesn't matter if you get a bit of that white edge of the watercolour paper coming through. Little one up here we can do in there. Okay, we might leave that one for a little bit, and do like this one here. That's the one I put the salt on it. So I think I'm going to grab at least maybe one of these, this middle size one, and do a flower with this one. Come on, go around. Move that right over to that edge if I can. Just going to make sure I've run that through far enough. Okay, let's pack this up and we'll see how we're going. Whether we have enough of all these pieces. So I'm just going to pop all of these over here out of the road. I've only got one flower in this brighter yellow, or the lemon lolly, but we'll see how we go. Okay then. So let's grab our card base. Now I'm not going to put a mat underneath this because I really just want the texture of that to go there. Might just trim this down a little bit, because what happens is when you cut your corrugation, it actually pulls your cardstock up. So where I'd only had half a centimetre difference in size, I've now got quite a bit, and I don't have as much on the width. So I'm going to cut my width down just a little bit. I also just want to trim that off so that it doesn't look so crooked there. So let me see if I need to trim this down anymore. Yes, I think it does need to come down a little bit more. So I want to take this to taking it to 9.7. I don't want to put a mat underneath it because I don't want to add any more colour. I just want to keep it to that. And I think that's going to look quite good there. Because I just want that white on white background. So let me just grab my glue. Really love this embossing folder. I believe we're going to be losing it. Good one to keep in your stash, I think. So there's that. So it's just giving us a little bit of texture rather than just a flat white. And now we can start playing with some of these flowers. So let's put some of these together. So I'm pulling out all of my big flowers and my leaves. So these all need to have our centres in them. But that little one there should be another one of those here. Just got some of these little what? Okay. So now I'm just going to glue them straight down. You could put, if you wanted to, a dimensional under each one, but I don't want to do that this time round. And I'm just loving all those textures of both the colouring and then the added texture from the dyes as well. So there are two big flowers. Then we have two little ones. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue on each one. Could also use your glue dots, because the glue does come out through the dots of the holes left by the die cuts as well. So, okay, one more here. Now, the only other thing I haven't done, which I might just do now, so these are spares. I'll pop them away into a cello bag so they can be used on another project. There are little ones we've got left over. There's our leaves. There's our other little fillers. Might even do some more of those in that. We'll see how we go, because I don't want too big a amount of flowers on there. But the only other thing I don't have is a sentiment. And I'm just grabbing a piece of cardstock here. And I'm going to do my sentiment in Memento. Excuse me. And I'm just going to do, I think, now, just maybe a thanks. Okay. Clean that in a little while. So let's have a look. How are we going to put this together? I may fussy cut this, so I'm just going to do my little trick of just drawing some light dotted lines around it so I know where roughly I want to cut. Just gives me a bit of a rough idea. It's just a cheat's way of doing fussy cutting. Just draw a little bit of a line on there first. And then I just cut on the inside of that line. Just move my paper rather than my scissors. Then if there's any pencil marks left, just need to lightly rub that out with an eraser. I can see a few little ones there. Just get rid of those. And there you go. There's my thanks. So let's arrange these. Let's start with that on there. Might pop this one on there actually. May not even use all these yet to see what is going to fit on here. So I'm just doing a bit of a dry fit. And I'm just wondering whether that might come down. That I think I want to pop underneath that yellow one there. I think something like that. Okay, I'm going to start sticking this down. So I'm going to glue this piece on here first. I might just pop that at a little bit more of an angle rather than straight up and down. Let's grab our dimensionals. Pop one underneath there. That one can go there. Just popping one underneath because in the center, because that will allow me to be able to slip them in and underneath each other. That one can go there. This one here, I'll pop another one underneath it. And this one, I'll pop a bit of glue on it because I want it behind all of those. Oops. I'll pop it behind that one. Wondering if we need a bit more yellow in there. Okay. I'm just going to grab that one. Let's move these out of the road for the moment. And what I want is these little ones. There's another one here somewhere. Now I'm just going to cut this because it won't all fit through my mini cut and emboss. Thank you, Leslie. I need to get myself my new plates out. Well, I've got them out. I just haven't taken them out of their plastic, but oh, I need that white piece underneath. Plate 1 needs to be there. It won't cut without that. So let's just cut a couple of those and those. But I also want to get as much out of this paper as I possibly can. Let's pop in one of those. Those. Don't let me forget to get that piece off the ground if I can find it. Okay, let's bring this back in. Let's have a look. So I feel like we need a little bit more yellow coming out from down there. Okay, I can see what I want to do. So we'll pop this one here just to give some balance. Get some glue out of this bottle. Whoa, glad that turned up the right way. Let's glue that one down into there. And then this one here, I'm only just putting it on the tip of it so I can pop that one into there. Now let's grab some of these leaves. Slip that one into there. Pop another one there. That a good push down. Just hold that there for a second because we've got a lot of layers in there. And let's have a look. I want that to go across there. I might just pop that on dimensionals now. Grab some mini ones for this. Okay. So we've got all these tiny weeny little flowers here. And I'm just going to add some little dots of glue there, and I'm going to pick up a couple of these. Ooh. Put a little bit of glue there, but I don't know whether I want another. Anyway, the glue's there now, so I'll pop a bit more on there because I will need to put one of these yellow ones on there. Normally I probably wouldn't put another yellow one right there next to that yellow flower there, but pop another one there. And so like I'm just doing this like you would do if you're putting on rhinestones or some sort of bling. I'm just putting a little bit of doing 3 lots of 3. Okay, and you could put your glue dots behind those if you wanted to. And just to finish this off, just wondering if they're going to be too big. I think I might leave them. I was thinking of putting those on top of them, but they might be just that little bit too big unless I've got something else that's a bit smaller. Let's have a quick look and see whether I've got anything that could do the flower centres. No, they're too big, too big. Nope. Nope. I have just had a little thought rather than those, see if I can find them. And I'm sure they're still available. Let's have a not those ones. Trying to see if I can find my little butterflies, the brass butterflies. There they are. I'm sure they're still available. but that doesn't matter. Be really cute. I just think it needs just a little bit of something. Just to finish these off. How about that? Now, the only thing I haven't done is we've got this here. Now, I've cut this smaller than I normally would. Again, I just want that sitting in there, white on white. Now, I've got a little bit of ink on this, but that's right down the very bottom. What I'm going to do is just maybe add, let's see, what have we got here? Let's have a little bit of a, yep. Okay, I'm just going to add a dimension on the back of that. There it went. Thought I lost it there for the moment. That one there. Add that there. Don't know whether I need another. Yeah, maybe another little leaf. Now, should we add? No, I think we might leave that because I'm not wanting to add cut any more flowers at the moment. I think we'll just leave it at that. We've got a little bit of bling in there as well. I don't think you can, there's a little yellow mark there, but I don't think you can really see that. It's just to give it a little bit of interest in there. And there's the front of our card. So doing a little bit of colouring, we've got all that lovely texture from our colouring, and I really love those leaves. The brighter your ink, the darker your ink, the more the texture will show up. But it actually is quite pretty with all that texture. And, you know, you've got texture on our leaves. Our leaves aren't a flat colour. So, you know, it's just another fun way of using your watercolouring and creating that. So I hope you've enjoyed that today. And as I said last week, play, grab some ink, grab some watercolour paper and just play. Just try different techniques. Find out what works for you. This is not one I always find very simple to do. I think it's because I don't have to concentrate on it. It's just like, and trying to get the textures, trying to do different things, because there's all sorts of different things you can do to get textures besides the ones I've showed you today. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Let me just bring me back up. So thank you very much for joining me again today, and we'll see you next Friday when we'll create another card, and I better go searching for that die. Bye for now.